Hi, good morning, everybody. So this is a recorded session on electronic approval of business cases, the kind of technical aspects and implementation. If you're looking forward to, or if you're looking to implement this in your organisation, there's some documents that Chris is going to go through the meeting, and I'll save those documents. I'll send them out to you, but I'll make sure that they are saved on the Innovations webpage as well. So for anybody who's not at this meeting, you'll be able to access these documents through there. So I'll hand you over to Chris now. Thank you.
Cool. Right. So I think the important thing to establish is that in order to do this, ideally your trust needs to have some prior knowledge of Power Apps and Power Automate. And ideally you have you're not on NHS.net and you're on your own tenant. This is the way we're set up, and I can't obviously give advice on how NHS.net works and their tenancy, and whether this would work in their environment. So a key thing for us is that we have a service account. So our service account is called O365 Systems, and we use that to run our flows and to build our apps in. So in case anyone left the organization, that this account is the owner, and the app and the flows will still run in the background, whether that person's in the organization or not. You need to be appropriately licensed, so we use E3 licensing. That means that we can run flows, build Power Apps, run Power Apps, and share them with other people in our organization. As Jodie alluded to, I've created a zip file with a basic README and a SharePoint list setup, a templated user guide that you can amend to however you feel, the Power App file to import, and the Power Automate file to import. So I'll open up the README quickly. Oh, I would have opened up the README. Tell me. So like I said, ensure you have an Office 365 account created. There's a license that can create Power Apps, create Power Automations, and can also create a SharePoint site. And we want you to use this account for all the steps. The first step is to create an empty SharePoint site and ideally call it business cases. Ours is called that, and I know that from going further on that's what works. You'll need to configure your user groups and user permissions. We suggest adding people on a need to use basis with read-write access so that they can create business cases and view them, and that must also include all the approvals or all the approvers who are going to be in your different steps. I've created a document which contains all the lists and how each column should be called, and also the type and whether they're required or not. I've also then listed what the choice options are, the calculations, and how date and time format fields should be labeled and configured as well. So I've done that for every single list. I've also given you examples on what the rows should look like as examples, so you can put them in as test data. And yeah, the next step would then be to import the Power Automate flow, which you can do in Power Automate here, and this is the outcome you'll get once you've imported it. Those that are new to Power Automate, each of these boxes is a step. So this top bit here gets the information on each business case as it's been created in the Power App and then submitted into the SharePoint list. We then do some checks here to make sure that it's a valid business case to do. And then this middle step here that looks very wide are our stage 2 approvals. You don't have to use the same stage 2 approvals that we do. So we use ICT, contracts, HR, estates, and finance. You could use different teams or individuals in this step. You just need to rename them to fit your organization. You can also add a new step and add more teams if you wish, and you can use the copy elements here to clone that stage and replicate it. The final part here is the end of stage 2 approval, whether it's approved or rejected. And then the final bit is the stage 3 approval, which in our case is for our chief financial officer to approve the business case, and then eventually give it a approved or a rejected outcome.
Is it okay to add something there, Chris? Sorry,
Yep.
our CFO approves it on behalf of the exec. So if you will have seen the previous recording that we'd done on business cases, if you were starting to look at whether you were interested in this, and it goes to like execs, and then the CFO approves it on behalf of them. Sorry, thank you, Chris.
That's all right. The final step is then importing the Power App, which is this step here, and you'd end up with a Power App like this. However, you'd see a bunch of errors. I've outlined that in the README document, that you'll need to connect up your SharePoint data sources. So you can do that in the data area here, where you'd add data, look for the SharePoint option, on list. Help me, I'm just trying to work out why that's not appearing. Sorry, the SharePoint connector there. In that SharePoint connector, you connect up using your account, and then you could look for the site that you've built. So in our case, it's the business cases one, and you can then import all the lists that you've created, and that should hopefully then, providing you've named everything correctly, tie up all the connections and allow you to use the app very simply. Obviously, we've demoed the app before. Obviously, at the minute it says Norfolk and Suffolk NHS Foundation Trust up the top there. You can amend that. So in the components section here, we have a header component, and you can go in there and you can change that trust logo to be your own one, and you can import that in there. Once you've done, you can publish the Power App. We have the app published to everyone in the trust. However, we hyperlink it on our business cases SharePoint site, and it's accessed from there. Really, people in our trust don't really access anything from powerapps.com, so that's how they access the app. Yeah, that's basically it from a demo perspective. So I've been through the lists. We've got the templated user guide that you can use to that you'll need to edit. Obviously, we've put bits in there where you need to amend to fit your organization. But there's demo screenshots there. There's how our process flow works. If you don't know how it works, that is there. And then there's example screenshots of approvals, how it appears in Teams and on your phone, and also how it appears in the app as well. You can obviously amend this to your heart's content, but it's fairly detailed and should hopefully help you on your way. So yeah, if anyone's got any questions, you can stick your hands up.
Don't be afraid to ask any questions. Pop it on the chat if you prefer. Oh, Stephen, sorry if you prefer Steve or Stephen.
That's perfectly okay. Thanks, Jodie. Thanks for that, Chris. It was great to see, and it looks like you've created some really good resources there for making use of the app and the Power Automate. I was just wondering about errors and error management and just the volume of errors that you might have seen, and have you got anything you could share in that respect?
Yeah, so the errors we only get are where people haven't approved. So they count on Power Automate as an error or a failure. And at that point, inside the Power Automate flow, it emails out to say that this flow hasn't completed because of X, Y, Z, and everyone in the process knows that, or gets a notification to that extent. Other than that, no. You can't, unless you've put you can't submit a business case without completing this. There's 2 fields that you need to complete, which is the business case name and then add an attachment. If they're not complete, the flow won't start, and you can't actually press the submit button. So it's pretty idiot proof.
I'm sure
That's
I still fail.
No, that's really good to know. Thanks, Chris. So it sounds like the only issue really is where something's not responded to. Does it have a time period for that? Is it?
Yeah. So if you've used Power Automate before, you know that flow expires after 28 days. So in the user guide here, we've sort of put here in this process flow how it starts. So the approval time here is when that clock starts ticking. So our 5 working day approval is there for the exec lead. It's then 2 working days for the stage 2, and then 8 working days for the CFO step.
And those
they are configurable.
Yep.
So
and is there a follow-up action on that? So will it remind people?
So it doesn't do reminders,
Okay.
only because it would keep looping round, and it would be there forever. So we've sort of got it in there hard that if you don't respond after 1 and 2 days, everyone knows that you've let the process down, and it's got to start again.
That's really helpful. Thanks, Chris.
The person who's uploaded the business case, they get a message to say that it's timed out at that particular stage, don't they?
Yeah.
Any other questions? If not, I'll move on to Martin. Thank you for starting off the questions. That's really helpful. Martin.
Hello. Hi, Chris. I was just wondering, in terms of if you've got an approver on leave, you've got down like 5-day kind of approval times there. What happens if someone's off for, say, a week? Is there any kind of automatic escalation, or kind of does it have the ability to delegate to other users? How does that work?
So we have it set up so that there are multiple people in each section. So if I just show you in the SharePoint list document here, and I'll also load up the actual example one so you can see. Come on.
You're proactive in doing something to stop the state. I know, but every time I do something, I'm told it's wrong, aren't I?
So in the list here, we have a contracts lookup, I should say, an estates lookup, and finance, HR, and ICT lookup. You can have one person. You can have more than one person for each each stage. Can anyone mute that other person? Wherever that's coming from, because that's really distracting. So you can have more than one person, and I'll show you an example of how that looks on the site. So within ICT, for example, we've got 4 approvers. So we've got Dave and Sheila. We also have a backup business cases account which the finance team have access to. So if they've had verbal approval or an email approval of someone and someone's on leave and they can't access things, the finance team can go in and override using that account and put the approval through on their behalf. We have the O365 systems account, so that's our service account, added as an option on every single approval, mainly just because we want to make sure that all the approvals go through. We know that works. We haven't taken it out. So if I go into the HR one, I believe there's obviously a lot more people in there for us. So there's quite a few members of the HR team there who can approve it. And obviously we've still got the O365 systems account and the business cases account there.
The HR one is set up in that way with lots of approvers because they have different responsibility for different areas, and there's no it doesn't, if one person's like on leave, it doesn't then go to the next person. It goes to all of them at the same time. I think this is right, Chris. Tell me if it's wrong. It goes to all of them at the same time, and they'll say, "Oh, that's my area. I'll do that." The others ignore it. And then if there's somebody on leave, the person that's also kind of delegated to sign it off, they have to know that that person is on leave and it's their responsibility. There's nothing in the system to say X specific person needs to approve this. You just have to know within your teams. I think is that fair to say, Chris?
Yeah. I
Thank
think
you.
a big part of your work has been getting all the departments on board with how to use it and to facilitate the approvals, really. Does that make sense, Martin?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope I've got this right. Is it Lucas, or is it
Yeah, Lucas.
Lucas?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
the one.
good. Yes.
Yeah, thank you for the demo, Chris. I have a question on how you share the app with the organization. Because I know you can share it directly with the NHS email, but do you have a way to actually make it into an app for mobile, for example?
So it works for everyone. So you wouldn't necessarily use the app on mobile because providing you've got Teams installed on your phone, your approval will come through on Teams.
Mm-hmm.
The app will work on your phone, so you can just load up Power Apps, install the Power app from your Play Store or App Store, and you can install that, sign in with your Trust account, and it would be available in there. The way you make any app available in Power Apps is by going to Share, and then you have the option here, Everyone In. So if that was your organization, you'd have everyone in XYZ, and that would then be available for everyone in the organization to use.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. And also another question on your Power Automate flow. I've noticed you had Outlook send an email on there.
Yep.
Is that something you had to configure with your IT? Because I tried to implement similar flow and it was restricted in our organization. It was some error, REST API error. So did you have similar issues with that, or?
That's why we have a dedicated account that does it. So we have a dedicated service account. So step one of the guide is to have a dedicated account that can do all the actions required.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
I just said thanks, Lucas, and then I realised I was on mic. Classic. Any other questions while we've got Chris, or while you've got either of us? Don't think there's anything in the chat. Kate.
Hi, I was just going to ask a question relating to if the flow fails because one of the signatories at one of the levels doesn't get completed, does it then have to go back to the start and the people who have previously approved it have to approve it again in order for it to make its way back through the approval process?
Yes. We get around that with the business cases account that we've created, so that if the flow stops because HR haven't approved their step and it's then timed out, the submitter can resubmit the request, and Jodie's team can do the approvals on the other team's behalf because they have already approved it, and sort of then nudge HR and say, look, this flow's failed because you've not approved. Can you please look at it ASAP? You've got until XYZ date to get it done.
Perfect. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Kate. They are really tight times that we've picked, like what the 2 working days for multi-stage approval. We do get a lot of timeouts or timed out. Timeout, that's something different. We get a lot of timed outs. So you may want to change that. It's just we're trying to get it through the system, like get people like signed up to this really, and saying when this comes through you need to look at it. And we're not asking them to sign off or authorize the whole business case. It's kind of their section. So when HR read it, they'll read through the whole business case, but they'll say, right, are all the HR assumptions correct? What they're suggesting is actually a bigger restructure than they think. We need to go to 45-day consultation, that type of thing. We're not expecting them to know the detail of what contracts would know or what finance would know. We don't need to check the costing. So it's only they'd read through all of it so that they understand it fully, but just say, are the assumptions for kind of their departments right? I'm not sure who came first.
me.
No,
It's all right,
sorry.
Jodie, it's me.
And then we've got
It
someone.
was really just to say quickly on that, on the durations, and Chris is far better qualified than this, but I do know that there's a Microsoft limit on the time span for each of these. So Chris, I don't know if how much flexibility there is on extending.
So it's 28 days, and we're under that 28-day limit with how it works at the moment. It's entirely up to you guys how you configure that 28-day limit within your trust. I will just quickly show you how it can be configured.
Whilst you're doing that, also there's a question in the chat from Janine Moore.
Thanks, Noel. Thank you.
Sorry, I'll let you take that back if you want, and Jodie.
No, go for it.
Okay, so Janine has asked, can I ask roughly how much time from the ICT team is required to maintain the system so that we can advise our ICT team what the expectations are? So Chris, I would imagine that's one for you to answer. How much, once we've set it all up and it's all running, how much input have you had to have?
None, really, Jodie, have we? We've only spoken because we've been putting this forward for the one finance group.
Yeah.
I haven't really had any involvement since it's gone live.
Because some of the tasks also have been handed over to finance as well. So if a business case has timed out and then we say, right, it's gone through most of the stages, let's put it back on the system at this point where it, like say, I don't know, I'm going to pick on contracts. It's timed out a contract, we'll put it back at the contract stage. Did you used to do that, didn't you, Chris? And then you said, yeah, and then you're like, no, finance can do that. Like there's no reason for me to be involved. So you have handed over or shared some of that responsibility. So that's I think you need to decide in your finance team and possibly like ICT who's going to manage those issues.
Yeah,
I don't really know what I'm talking about.
I think from
an ICT perspective, we haven't had a lot of involvement for a long while. It's just been collaborating together on this with the one finance group. But just quickly,
what I was also just going to add, Chris, is the fact that, and Jodie as well, that as with any piece of work, the planning and design is crucial, and the work which went into the design for this system means that it's, you know, very, very low maintenance from the IT side.
Yeah. So just going back to the approval times. So you have here a wait approval on each layer. In this wait approval, you can go to the 3 dots and then settings. And what you can see here is a duration. It says P5D. So the 5D means 5 days. So you can amend that to suit. Obviously, you need to do your maths and work out that if stage 1 is stage 1 is 8 days in our example, and you've got 5 days in layer 3 and layer 2, so that's 13 overall. You've then got 1 for stage 3, which in our example is 14 days. So that gives 27 days for this process to complete. Obviously, you can amend and flex that as you wish. We've been a bit generous on our stage 3 one, but yeah, you can move and juggle them around how you wish. Obviously, each stage needs to be the same. So if you're amending your stage 2 ones, they all need to be 5 days, 4 days, 3 days, however long you want, 2 days, to make sure that it doesn't then jump onto stage 3.
Do you think it's definitely worth, because we did a showcase session, didn't we, Chris, where we went through what the dashboard looked like and how it was created and the kind of the planning side of it,
Yeah.
what we needed. So if anybody hasn't seen that, that's on the innovations webpage, and I'd say definitely go back and have a look at that, because that
100%.
hopefully will help you understand a bit more what's happening here.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's it. If you think of any questions after, feel free to email me. But if you think, I have a question, it might be a silly question, like please ask it, because there's going to be some people like looking at this with the same questions in mind. So there's no silly questions on here at all. But if not, you can have half an hour back of your valuable time. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. I'm glad you could make it. And thanks, big thank you to Chris as well, and Noel. Where can we find the innovations webpage? It is, if can I share this? Oh, thanks. Can I do here? It's on the One NHS website. Can you see the screen that I'm sharing? So if you go to One NHS Finance website, can everyone see the screen? Sorry.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, great. Okay. So this is the One NHS Finance website, and then up here you've got the Finance Innovation Forum, and you can find the you can find it on the Innovation Library. Explore here. Oh, you have to log in, but it is here, and then you can either search like electronic business cases, or I think we were cohort 4, so you can search that way, and then it's in there, but it's easy to log in. Darren.
Sorry, a bit late, but one question is how interactive is it in the because if someone changes the business case, I don't know. So if someone said, I don't know, they wrote the business case and they need 10 more people, and so a state said, well, where are they going to sit? And we said, oh, we're going to sit they're going to work agile, they're going to work from home, or whatever the answer will be, or they need to incorporate that change into the business case. How does that kind of does the system notify everyone that these things have changed? Does that make, sorry, I made myself.
Yeah, I think, Chris, do you want to answer that?
So every every level has an option to add a note as to whether they're approving or rejecting it. If they are rejecting it, the process will start again, and they'll need to resubmit their business case with any amendments.
So in that example, so the relevant person hasn't mentioned where these 10 new people are going to sit, and the states are uncomfortable signing that off, they would have to reject it and then go through the process again, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, thank you.
You're on mute, Jody.
you. I was just saying, I've just remembered my password for One NHS Finance. So I've clicked on the innovations forum and then innovation library, and then you can search here. So you could either like put in electronic approval of business cases here, or there's just a whole library here. Innovation, you can select by innovation type, NHS, so mental health, and it will come up with our here. Click on here, read more. And it will be saved on this page here. So that's the first kind of showcase session. This one here is what myself and Chris did. And then I think they're hit the downloads. So you'll find all the documents that Chris has shared today on here. So that's where it'll be. So when I'm talking about the websites, that was a good question. Thank you. Have you answered the is that Janine's question that you've answered?
I've tried
Yeah,
that one, yeah.
brilliant. Thank you. Any other questions? No. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. It's nice to meet you in this arena, and let us know if you do have any questions. If you message me first, you've got my email address. Oh, thank you very much. Take care, everybody. Have a good day.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jodie.
Cheers.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.